Once upon a time, there was a little man called George. He was a little old man, and this man lived with a little old lady called Georgina. George and Georgina were husband and wife living together, and they had no children at all.
Oh, no.
Sad, isn't it? Anyway, one day the little old woman called Georgina said to George, "I really would like to have a little boy, but as we can't have any children, I'm going to make a gingerbread boy." So?
No puppet. A puppet.
A puppet?
A puppet.
You wanted to make a puppet?
Yeah.
Okay, so the little man who could work with his wood decided to make a puppet. What should we call the puppet?
Well, I want to be I'm called Pinnochio.
Pinocchio, that's a good name for a puppet. So the little old man carved a little boy with his tools. He made a little wooden face and some wooden legs and wooden arms, wooden feet, wooden hands, and a wooden body. And then he screwed it all together. Well, to his surprise, the wooden boy seemed to come alive. It danced and it sang. Well, George was very happy with his little boy, as was Georgina. They decided to call the little boy Georgie. They called him Georgie, not Pinocchio. Is that okay?
No, Pinocchio.
Okay. Actually, they called him Pinocchio for short. Sometimes they call him Georgie, sometimes Pinocchio, but we'll call him Pinocchio for the purpose of this story. Anyway, Pinocchio was very happy to be in the man and woman's house. But one day, when the man, George, and the wife, Georgina, went out, Pinocchio decided to be very naughty. He took some of the man's books and threw them on the fire to burn them. Then, after he'd done that, he decided to lie down by the fire to have a sleep. So he put his feet near the fire to warm them up and fell asleep. Well, not only did the fire burn the books, but it also burnt his feet off, his wooden feet. Of course, he couldn't feel anything because they were made of wood. When George came home, he looked for his books and couldn't find them anywhere. "Have you seen my books?" he said to Pinocchio. "No," said Pinocchio, and just then his nose grew a bit longer because he told a lie. Then George said, "Well, they must be somewhere." And then George said, "Pinocchio, look at your feet, they're burned off. What happened?" So Pinocchio told another lie. He said, "I was walking near the fire and I fell in the fire, and my feet burned off." Suddenly, Pinocchio's nose grew a bit longer. Now, it was nearly as big as a carrot. The old man George was a bit sad for his books, and he never did find out what happened to his books, but he decided to make some new feet for Pinocchio. The next day, when George and Georgina were fast asleep, Pinocchio decided to run away. Well, after he ran away, he came across some very bad children who told him to do bad things. And one of the bad things they told him to do was to go back to his house and steal George and Georgina's money. Now, don't ask me why Pinocchio was so naughty, but that's what he did. He crept back to the house in the middle of the night, opened the door, went inside, and took George's wallet with all the money in it and took it to the bad children so they could spend it on sweets and toys and frivolities. Well, When George woke up and found his money was missing, he called the police to investigate. He also explained to the police that his son, Pinocchio, was missing. Now, the police aren't stupid, and they saw a connection between the missing wallet and the missing boy, Pinocchio. So they decided it'd be easier to look for Pinocchio than it would be to look for the wallet. So they asked George to describe what Pinocchio looked like. So George said, well, he's got a wooden head and wooden legs and brand new wooden feet that I've just put on and wooden arms and a wooden body. Now the police thought it was very strange that a boy would be made of wood because most children are made of flesh and blood with hair on their head, not wood. But anyway, whatever the situation, the police decided to go and look for a wooden puppet. And sure enough, it wasn't too difficult to find a wooden puppet because many people had seen this puppet walking through the town and were quite surprised by it. So everybody knew where he'd gone. So when the police found the puppet, Pinocchio, they arrested him and asked him, have you seen George's wallet? No, said Pinocchio. And his nose, which was already as long as a carrot, grew even longer. Now it was as long as my forearm.
But how about like this? How about like this? How about go like that? Look way long like that.
As long as your arm, yes, it was getting as long as your arm.
It was good like this.
Yes, like that, exactly, like poking out of his nose.
How about it goes like that?
Well, when
Maybe it would go even longer like that.
It was a bit annoying for poor Pinocchio because everywhere he went, his nose would bump on things. It's quite annoying. It's very difficult to sleep on his face because his nose was too long. Anyway, the police didn't believe him, especially when they found what was in Pinocchio's pocket. It was George's empty wallet. So the police knew that he'd done it. So they decided to put him in prison and lock him up. Now, they went back to George, the police went back to George and gave George the wallet and said, we found this wallet on your son Pinocchio. He's the one who's stolen it, so we've put him in prison. Now this made George very, very sad. He was so sad that he, the son that he loved so much, he loved with all his heart, had turned into a bad boy. It literally broke his heart. So George, in his desperation and sadness, decided to go and throw himself into the sea. Now, as he was drowning, along came a very large fish, like a whale, and swallowed him whole. And now, George lived inside the whale's tummy with nothing to eat but krill. That's the food that whales usually eat. Now, after Pinocchio had been in prison for a while, the police thought he'd served his sentence and let him go. Pinocchio now felt very sorry for himself and realized he'd been naughty and done wrong. So he went back to George's house, where he saw Georgina, but not George. Georgina told him, crying her eyes out, what had happened to George. She told him, it's all your fault, Pinocchio. You shouldn't have burned his books. You shouldn't have burned your feet. You shouldn't have run away, and you shouldn't have come back to steal his wallet. Pinocchio, how could you be such a naughty boy? She said, it's broken my poor husband's heart. His heart is broken and he's jumped in the sea and been swallowed probably by a giant whale. Poor Pinocchio, he felt very ashamed of himself. He was extremely ashamed because he'd done such bad things. He knew he shouldn't have done them. Finally, in his sorrow, Pinocchio resolved that he'd go and look for his father in the sea. So off he went to the sea and jumped in. And as things happened, along came the very same whale and swallowed Pinocchio up whole. Inside the whale's tummy, he met his daddy, George, and gave him a big hug, and George gave him a big hug, and Pinocchio apologized to his daddy for all the bad things he'd done and promised he'd never, ever be naughty again. He said, "Daddy, I'm so ashamed of what I did. I know it was wrong. I didn't realize at the time how bad I was. I'm so sorry. I'll never do it again. I'll love you till the end of the earth. Thank you for making me. Thank you for giving me new feet. Thank you for trying to look after me. And I didn't do right by you. I was wrong to run away. I was wrong to burn your books. I was wrong to burn my feet. I was wrong to come back and get your wallet and steal it. I'm so sorry. I'm so ashamed of myself. I'm wicked. I should never have done that. Please forgive me. Please, please, please." Well, George loved his son to the end of the earth, as I told you, but it had broken his heart to see Pinocchio do all these bad things. But finally, he forgave Pinocchio and gave him a big hug, and they were friends again. Now, Pinocchio decided to help his daddy get home. So he managed to go to the front of the whale and speak to the whale through his mouth and explain to the whale that they had to go to the shore. So the whale swam up to the shore and then coughed very loudly, coughing out Pinocchio and George the daddy. And then George and George and Pinocchio all went home back to Georgina, who was waiting for them with a lovely meal of pumpkin pie. And they all sat down to have a nice meal, and Pinocchio went to bed in George's house and was never, ever naughty again. And they all lived happily ever after.
Nice story.
That was the last story tonight, my little boy.